Welcome to episode 204 of Sports Management Podcast. Today's guest is José Gandarillas, the founder of KPI Football. In this episode, you will hear the story of how José took a football team from struggling to champions using data analytics. You will also learn José's journey from industrial engineer to sports entrepreneur, the time he was managing one of Chile's most iconic football clubs, how COVID almost changed everything, how AI will impact the football industry, and much more. José Gandarillas, welcome to Sports Management Podcast.
Thanks, Marcus. It's quite good to have this opportunity.
Thank you. It's great to have you on the show. You are the founder of KPI Football. So can you tell us a little bit about this company?
Yes, KPI Football was founded 6 years ago with the idea to provide key information for football clubs and football organizations to go a bit further than just descriptive information, the classic traditional data, to provide them information that let them predict and to take better decisions.
Why is data so important in making educated decisions?
Yes, well, I think it's like every industry. Like when you talk about like a bank, an airline company, or whatever, every company needs consistent information to making the best decisions. Football is the same. So you need to take decision based on objective information, clear, because opinions can be very different from different people, and the memory collects specific moments and is not always keep the most important information and can give context to information to make better decisions. So when you have numbers, data, you will analyze the history much better than if you just trust in your memory.
Yeah. I know that your model offers, a mix of physical tracking and also event data. So how does the model look like for KPI Football?
Yes, well, we designed a model that took us many years. Like we started with an idea, then we started analyzing games to try to identify the most important parts of football games and what will make you take better decisions. So during the years, we kept improving this model and came to conclusions based on data, like analyzing many games. So we identified some situations, like, for example, that one of the most important things for analyzing players, attacking players, is to see what happened before the finish occurs, like what happens previous to a finish. If it's like a cross, a pass, or like a carry, dribbling or without dribblings, we identify that if you manage to count how many times it happens, you will have identified players that can make difference in football games. And that if you also add tracking data, you make it much more specific and predictive. For example, it's not the same to have a carry that is at 26 kilometers per hour than 30 kilometers per hour. Like when you see like the top players in the world, you can see things that they do difference and you can analyze with numbers. How many meters, how quick they run, how quick they accelerate, and all that information will make you take better decisions.
That's very interesting. So as you said, there is so much data you can take. How fast someone runs, how hard someone shoots, what happens before goal. How do you decide what metrics are the most relevant when you're giving that to the team or a coach?
Yes, well, football is quite complex. One of the reasons what football clubs still don't use much data is because when you analyze classic data like completed passes, shots, saves, and numbers without much context, let's say you don't analyze where the players are shooting or where the players are passing, you cannot understand exactly what happened. It's different to other sports like basketball or rugby. Like, for example, basketball, you have more than 100 points per game. So you have a lot of information just analyzing points. So if you see which are the players that scored more or assist more, it will provide you information that will make you take good decisions. But in football, you have less than 2 goals per game in situations that were created during open play games, not set pieces. So with 2 goals per game, less than 2 goals, and many of them are not provided by an assist because it's a player that won a duel and then he shoot, or like he create the chance by himself, or there was a deflection during the pass or the cross. You won't be able to take good decisions analyzing assists. Like a good example is like Vinicius, like the season before the last one, he only had 4 assists, was not in the top 40 of the league, but he was the best player of the world that year. So there wasn't like a good conclusion based on some metrics. So based on what we have identified, like first of all, you have to provide a good expected goal score, like so that can be very accurate, like that can be very meaningful for what happened during the game. One of the key KPIs that we have created is like to measure how the team behaves with or without a player on the pitch, how the expected goal move or like behaves depending on a player was on or off the field. So if you won't be able to analyze exactly if the team is improving or decreasing with or without the player. But if you pass these to numbers and you analyze how the team was doing, like how much expected goal they create with the player or without, you will be much more accurate and you will have objective information for taking future decisions.
That's really interesting. So what you're saying is basically like maybe a specific player didn't score or make an assist, but you saw that by this player being on the field, they were scoring more goals than when this player was not on the field.
Exactly. And more than scoring goals, it's like how many chances they created, because you cannot analyze a player or like judge his performance if his teammate doesn't score from a clear chance. What you can analyze is if the team created the chance, then what happens in the box depends on the striker and the goalkeeper, opposition goalkeeper, I mean, because you can have created a great chance, your teammate made an excellent finish, but if the goalkeeper has a top save, for example, like a couple of years ago when Liverpool lost the Champions League final to Real Madrid, if this game is played 100 times, Liverpool would win it much more times that they will lose it. But Courtois that day was so inspired that he stopped many clear opportunities of Liverpool, especially in the first half. So you cannot judge the fullback or the center back or the midfielders depending on if they score or not. You can judge them much better depending on how the team behaved when they were on the field or in that specific game.
I understand. That's really interesting. I mean, there's so much data, obviously, that you can pick up, right? But data is only valuable if you can interpret it and know. So how do you know which data is of value and how do you interpret it in order to make good information with it?
I think what will make you take good decisions or consider if the data is valuable or not is to try to use it building predictive models. Like, let's say, if you analyze completed passes, maybe a player can improve their completed passes percentage, but he's risking less with the ball. So maybe his performance is not going better. You cannot pass that number to predict how many goals they will score. And there will be other information that you can test, and you need a lot of data, many games of information, many seasons, years to understand exactly which data is providing you the information to predict. So you can see what I analyzed, let's say 3 years ago, and which metrics gave me information of the players that are doing well at the present, like what players are doing well. So you have to analyze the past quite a lot to see what was delivered in the future.
Now, with AI, machine learning, and all of these tools that are available, how much are you using that? And, when you're building your own systems and technology?
Yeah, well, because our model has a specific characteristic that we measure situations based on an objective. So, like, our data has an objective. The objective is creating a chance. And that's quite useful for machine learning algorithms, because when you build a machine learning algorithm or predictive models, you want to predict something. So if you use data that has an objective, something that you want to achieve, it will be much better. So we have our own machine learning algorithm that is used for our predictive model. And also we are using AI for this tracking data that identify players with X and Y coordinates, and you can follow them, track them during the whole game and measure them, like all the distance, speeds, acceleration, all the physical metrics. So we are using that to enrich our system.
Has there been any pushback from the teams, like that maybe you have a way of working and you don't want to take on these new systems?
Yes, well, basically the experience working with teams or different tournaments or football agents has gave us the experience to improve our model. To give you an example, last year was played the under 15 championship in South America, the CONMEBOL that didn't make the national teams qualified for a World Cup because there wasn't an under 15 World Cup, but still was like a Copa America, like a South American championship. And in that championship, Colombia didn't and Brazil didn't qualify to the last four teams for playing the definitions. And based on our data, they were both the best teams. Then following year, the same players played the under 17 championship. And the winner was Brazil and the second was Colombia. And we provide a report to Colombia and the CONMEBOL saying that Colombia was one of the best teams, something that sometimes doesn't seem so intuitive because they lost 3 games and they won only 1. So like all the experience made from this analysis has made us improve to confirm things that are not useful, maybe some metrics that doesn't provide you the best information. So it has been like really good to talk constantly with football clubs and to improve our product.
Now, when you have worked with a lot of teams and so on, do you have any success stories, like when you gave some advice based on data that they used and that were successful?
Yes, well, there are many examples of that, especially like identifying football players. But a good example could be like Colo Colo many years ago. Not many, I mean like 3 years ago, 3 seasons. They lost the championship, last 2 rounds of the championship, and they were like very disappointed. And we analyzed their games, and we told them, you were by far the best team of the league. You were Colo Colo is the main club in Chile, by the way, the main football club, and one of the most historical football clubs in South America. And we told them, you are the best team. You just need to improve in these couple of aspects, and you don't need to change the whole team. They kept most of the players. They just signed a couple of them, and the next year, Colo Colo won the championship by long distance. They did quite well in Copa Libertadores, and we analyzed in the middle of the season, they were first of the league, sharing the first position with another club, and we again reinforced them to not sign many players because they were still the best team of the season, and that saved them a lot of money. It's like they improved their budget quite a lot, having the right information. And we, as I said before, like all this experience made us confirm that when you take decisions based on data, you will improve your economical results and sporting results quite a lot.
Yeah, that's a great story, and nice to see that it really works in reality.
Yeah.
I'm interested in your background as well. So I know you're an industrial engineer and you have worked on the sports management side, and now you're an entrepreneur. So can you tell us a little bit about your story and how it's been like?
Yes. Well, I am, as you said, I am industrial engineer. I went to live in London in 2010, and then I started working for a company that did football stats for that years. That was my first approach to this industry, where I think were the beginnings of what is happening now. Like they were a very smart company with a great analysis view, and I worked with them for 3 years. I could see how other companies were working in London during those years that now have impact in a few clubs like Brighton or Brentford. So I can say that I've been involved in this industry of football data from the first years. Like, I mean, more than football data exists from many years earlier before, but football analytics, like once companies that provide information for clubs for decision making. Then in 2013, I went back to Chile to run a football club called Deportes Valdivia. It's a football club in the south of Chile. We took them in the fourth division. We got promoted twice. My last year in charge of the club, I was the executive chairman. My last year in that club, we played playoffs for getting promoted to the top division. Unfortunately, we couldn't make it, but that a part of the amazing experience to making a football club to have their best performance in 35 years. A part of that, it gave me a lot of experience to know the other part of football, how football coaches think, how they understand, how they work, how they prepare set pieces, how they analyze football. Also to make many contacts. I was part of the Chilean football clubs that run the league, the 32 clubs. So I met the president of the league, the national team. I traveled with the national team with like Arturo Vidal, Alexis Sanchez in the flights when Chile was playing abroad, like when they went to play to Argentina. So that gave me a lot of contacts as well. And then in 2019, I was back. I left this football club, so I start this startup because I was sure that football analytics was going to be important in the future of football. And I think still it is the early days of this industry. And I think this should grow quite a lot in the upcoming years.
So when you were working as the director of Valdivia, did you feel like that aspect were missing with the analytics and the data?
Yes, to run a football club is quite complex. You have many aspects. You are not going to take every decision based on data because you don't have like psychological information. Maybe you don't have. You need to be there to understand how are things happening inside the organization. But I use quite a lot, like especially like expected points or expected goals analysis for decision making. For example, to know when to keep a manager or when it was the moment to change, because the team, you could see that it wasn't going to improve. And we managed to get to the quarterfinals of the Chilean FA Cup, kind of, or Chilean Cup to say, to quarterfinals with the lowest budget of the second division. So I think, and I think now with all the information we have learned across the years, I think we could do much better if that, because you can be much more specific in the information. In those years, like 2018, 19, we didn't even have a GPS, for example, like to monitoring football players. Now, I think I couldn't run a football club without all this information. And as I said, like we could do much better even because you can learn quite a lot.
And what's the future now with KPI Football? What's the next step?
Well, the next step, we want to start operating in UK. We want to work with lower leagues clubs because I think this country like UK and maybe Northern Europe is much more mature for this. South America is still difficult to work with as many clubs as we would expect. And I think UK is a perfect market for us, for the solution we have built, because it's especially useful for, like, let's say League One or League Two clubs where they don't have budget for building a massive department, but we provide a platform that you don't need necessarily the data scientist, because it's based on a BI software. It's like a business intelligence software where you can manage it your own. So you don't need a data scientist, for example, to filter against who you want to analyze the numbers, because it's not the same to play against Barcelona, Real Madrid, or the bottom teams of the league. Your data will be different if you analyze playing against the different teams of the leagues, or the different moments if you were playing against 11 against 11 or 10 against 11. It's not the same. So you need to be able to filter of this. Otherwise, you won't have very good information.
No, that's a really good point. In this time, as both as a manager and now an entrepreneur, has there been any bumps on the road, any difficulties? And if so, how did you overcome them?
Many. Like, it has been really difficult. Well, this has been a very, very complete experience where I have learned a lot. But we started, well, first of all, we started 2019, and the year after, less than a year after, it happened the pandemic, where football was stopped all over the world. I think more than a year, clubs were not interested at all in using data. They were more interested, or like more worried about doing like the PCR tests, like to make sure the players were not infected, more than analyzing. You remember that Champions League final of PSG against Bayern, like there were no fans, and I think we forget a bit how was that year. So like it was like more than a year. So like as you ask, like an entrepreneur, you start, but suddenly it could happen many things that you cannot predict, like, and happens, and that could be very difficult. And after that, it has been very challenging to try to make football clubs in South America understand that the data is quite useful and it's completely necessary. It's not a problem for them, or we are not competing with them. Sometimes people is worried because thinks that this will replace them, and it's not. Always will need a human to analyze, and this will help them to have a better career, like to have more opportunities in the future if they start working with data sooner than later.
No, I mean, that's the fear generally with technology, that it will replace human jobs, so to speak, right? It was the same with the internet, same with the computer, everything.
Yeah.
So I like to end on a networking question. So who from your network do you think would be a good guest on this podcast?
Oof. In South America, there are like a couple of very good examples of managing football clubs or organizations. If it's about football, like Independiente del Valle in Ecuador, they have doing very well. In Argentina, could be Talleres de Córdoba, like a club that was in the third division a couple of years ago, and they have maybe the best football administration in Argentina. I think there are a couple, but if I remember someone else that I can provide you in the upcoming days, I will definitely give you the contact.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Jose, it's been really interesting to listen to you and about KPI Football. Thank you so much for taking the time to be on Sports Management Podcast.
Thank you, Marcus. Thanks a lot for this conversation. It has been really nice.
Thank you for listening to the Sports Management Podcast. Please hit the follow or subscribe button on your podcast app so you don't miss out on any upcoming episodes. If you want to get in contact with me, send an email to sportmpodcast@gmail.com, connect with me on LinkedIn, or follow the podcast on Instagram, X, and Facebook @SportsMPodcast.